Imagine this. A murderer who has taken a life is serving a similar sentence to a teenager who stole a backpack from a store. How can such an imbalance be considered justice? Today, I want to argue that sentencing laws must be stricter and more proportional to the severity of the crime committed. As a student of criminology and psychology, I have researched sentencing disparities and how they impact fairness, rehabilitation, and public trust. In this speech, I'll walk you through three main points. First, why is disproportionate sentencing harmful? Second, how it affects public safety and rehabilitation. And third, why urgent reform is needed to ensure a just legal system. First, let's talk about the inconsistencies in how we punish crimes. According to a report by the Sentencing Project in 2023, violent offenders, including murderers and sex offenders, often negotiate plea deals that drastically reduce their sentences. This is not because they deserve leniency, but because courts are overwhelmed and prisons are overcrowded. For example, there have been many cases where repeat sex offenders are released early on to commit further crimes, devastating victims and communities. When someone who assaults multiple victims is back on the streets in a few years, what message are we sending about the value of safety? Meanwhile, individuals who commit far less serious offenses can receive shockingly harsh punishments. The American Civil Liberties Union, or ACLU, reported in 2022 that nonviolent offenders, including shoplifters, sometimes receive sentences longer than those for manslaughter. Take the case of a 17-year-old who received 10 years in prison for stealing $100 worth of goods, compared to a violent offender who was paroled after only 6 years for assault with a deadly weapon. This disproportion not only wastes taxpayer money, but ruins lives that could have been salvaged through rehabilitation. Now, what happens when the justice system appears so unfair? First, it breeds public distrust. If people see that wealth, race, or even random chance can determine how long someone is imprisoned, they lose faith in the system's integrity. Second, overcrowding becomes a major issue. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics in 2024, nonviolent offenders make up a significant portion of the prison population, while dangerous individuals sometimes slip through the cracks due to space limitation. This imbalance endangers communities and makes real rehabilitation nearly impossible. Finally, victims and communities suffer emotionally and socially. It re-traumatizes victims when they see offenders back on the streets too soon, or when petty crimes are punished so harshly that it feels more like a revenge than justice. So what can we do? First, establish strict federal guidelines that tie sentencing length directly to the severity of the crime, not to plea deal convenience or prison overcrowding. A person who commits a crime should be serving longer than someone who shoplifted, period. Second, prioritize rehabilitation for non-violent crimes. Programs like drug treatment, community service, and education can only reform low-level offenders instead of destroying their futures with long prison terms. Third, reserve long-term imprisonment for high-risk, dangerous individuals who pose a real threat to society. We must focus prison sentence resources on those who actually need to be separated from society. To wrap up, sentencing must be proportional to the crime to uphold and protect communities. We reviewed how disparities currently harm individuals and society, and I proposed reforms that can bring fairness and logic back into our justice system. I urge policymakers to reevaluate sentencing laws carefully, and I urge every citizen here to speak up and demand a more equitable system. Justice should not be about how full our prisons are. It should be about who truly belongs there and for how long. Thank you.